Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine from Fleet Planner and I'm a Quality Compliance Assistant. And today I'm joined with Roman, who is a consultant and also an experienced external transport manager. And today we're going to be talking about, just in our lunch break, how to become a transport manager, an external one specifically, and what are the benefits of it, what is the role, what are the responsibilities, and just some kind of questions. If you are watching and you have some questions while we're talking, please drop them in and we can kind of address them as we go through or at the end. So on that note, I'll ask my first question. I've obviously prepared some questions. My first question for you, Roman, is why should you become an external transport manager? And what kind of some of the benefits of doing a role like this, for example?
Certainly. So welcome everyone. Hello, Jasmine. So the benefits of becoming a transport manager, external transport manager specifically, is for me is the ability to work with more than one company and on a part-time basis as well. So you get different exposure to different issues, challenges. Some companies obviously are requiring more background support, more base in terms of compliance. Some are quite achieving quite highly. So being able to see the full spectrum, and then that gives you much more experience, and you get to see more things and more. You can learn quite easily from one company, and then successfully pass on the solutions onto another company. And obviously, in terms of personal benefits, the work, you get experience much quicker than you would just working for one company. There is job security, because working for more than one business, although you're not getting the full wage as you would get just working for one company, but if you lose your job for one company, then you still keep the others. So that's a benefit as well.
That's a really good point, actually, with the pandemic as well, that people are coming in and out of jobs and businesses shutting down or opening up, and being an external transport manager is a really good way of keeping secure in a position that people who are running transport operations are going to continue to do throughout the pandemic and things like that. So a bit of context for people watching as well. Roman was actually a driver as well in one of his past roles quite a long time ago now. So one of my questions to you about that is, what helped? Did it help to be a driver before you became an external transport manager, in terms of the role, and if you kind of had more knowledge before that made the exams and things like that easier to do?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, first of all, becoming a transport manager felt like a natural progression. I did want to progress when I was a driver, and I was thinking, what could I do? Then naturally, I kind of started getting more knowledge about transport compliance or transport industry. How is it run? There was a point in my life I actually asked myself, what am I actually good at? And then I thought, well, obviously I'm in transport, I'm driving a lorry, but what if someone came to me and said, oh, how do I set up a transport company? Can you help me? And I just thought to myself, well, actually, no, I don't. I wouldn't know how to answer all the questions, maybe some of it, but not all of it. So I started learning more about that, and naturally the courses came, and I started gaining the more theoretical knowledge as well. So that driving experience did help me definitely with driver's hours, for example, like passing the exam on the transport manager's examination on the driver's hours questions. That definitely helped me answer that. But in terms of getting the qualification, that's pretty much it. You do need to study and then make sure you are able to pass. on the practical note, I can always refer back to my experience speaking to drivers, making some toolbox talks or things like that. Then absolutely, I can draw back on this. However, I don't see that as something absolutely necessary to have. I think just having the you can build a connection with drivers in a various ways by, as long as you're able to clearly communicate and set out your expectations. So I think that's
on what you're saying. Being a driver helps, but it's not actually something that contributes significantly to being a successful external transport manager.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I know some very good transport managers who never been a driver. They don't even hold a lorry driving license or a bus driving license. In the same way, I do know some transport managers who used to be drivers and they are not very good at their job. So it's I don't think it's a rule there. But
you're not included in that, though, are you?
Say again?
You're not included in that, though, are you?
I hope not. I hope not. Although some say that if you're a bad driver, then you're pushed to the office and then to kind of get you out of the road. So some say that is the case, but hopefully not with me. Yeah.
Well, we've actually got a question that I thought I'd bring up just as I've seen it now. Someone's just put, how much do you charge per month for one vehicle as an external transport manager? If we get a rough idea, I know obviously around the country you're going to see varying costs and fees from external transport managers, but from your experience, what is that kind of general amount that they're charging at the moment?
Absolutely. So it's a very good question, but I don't believe there is a very simple answer to it, because it's very important to ask the client what if there is any compliance issues. So asking for the OCRS score is a key, and I think the transport manager needs to know that information first. And obviously, if the client tells you that they've been running for 10 years, they need a transport manager, and they don't know what the OCRS operator compliance risk score is, then that's a kind of red flag straight away.
Yeah.
Because if there is some underlying compliance issues to resolve, then the involvement from the transport manager, like in terms of time spent, will be greater. Okay, so the fee needs to reflect that. But to give an answer to for a normal company that like either new company or a company that's been operating without any kind of major problems, then I will charge £350 a month for one vehicle, and then additional vehicles would be charged at £100 extra. And that's I think that's kind of common fees. Some people charge less. Some people are lucky to charge more. But I think charging less brings a question of how much time is transport manager actually able to spend with the operator.
So as a piece of advice for people watching, transport operators, then keeping your OCRS score low is going to help you when you're looking for an external transport manager in terms of costs and things like that. So thank you for answering that question, Roman. One of my questions again to you then is, we've spoken a bit about your experience with being an external transport manager for a operator. What is it like being an external transport manager for several operators? This is where you'll probably, your time becomes more filled with dedicating that amount of time to each operator. And how do you keep the standard of compliance to the required kind of what the traffic commissioner will want to see when you've got all of those different operators that you're responsible for as a transport manager?
Yes. So the important thing for me is ability to build a relationship with the client. So the setting out the way of communication, what needs to be escalated to transport manager, because obviously being external transport manager means that you're not there. all the time for the client. So and obviously the nature of the transport industry is that you cannot monitor drivers all the time because they are out there on the road. So so ability to control the situation from the transport manager perspective is absolutely a key that needs to be addressed. So establishing with the client what the director or the management will be reporting, and the timings of this, what the drivers will be reporting in terms of the defects, in terms of any issues on the road, how the stuff gets escalated, and then obviously having a regular appearance and checking the vehicles, speaking to the drivers face to face is quite important. So definitely establishing channels of communication, and then enforcing, getting evidence that stuff happens as well is quite important. So for me, this comes to mind when setting up the relationships, and obviously having multiple operators means that when you're sitting in front of your computer, and then obviously these days everything, like not everything but most things are managed by technology, so you can have fleet management software, you can have tachograph analysis software. When you run infringement reports, you just do one by one, so kind of do for one company, then the second company, and the third company. You basically are able to focus on one thing, and then do the lot, prepare yourself, and then move on to the next thing. So so some things kind of can be done in a more efficient way as well, which is beneficial. And the other benefit I would say is when you're learning something, when you kind of update your knowledge and stuff, you're most likely to affect all your operators rather than learning 4 times or 3 times same thing.
Yeah. So you, for example, as I've mentioned, having experience with being an external transport manager for several operators, how did you find work to be, nominated as the external transport manager on several licenses, and where can people look to find that kind of work if they're looking to become an external transport manager?
Okay, so there are various ways to get that. Obviously, the best way is by knowing someone, you know their reputation, and then they are fairly local to you, so you don't need to travel far, and then you don't spend a lot of time in a car getting to the operator. But that's not always possible. The kind of our connections are limited. So we want to reach out to people who are actively looking, and the best way to do that is to register on with the companies that help find that work, or companies that help operator license holders keep the compliance levels. If your name is out there, you're happy to for the company to hold that your data on the account, so then you can expect to receive a phone call. Sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes you get through 2 phone calls in a week. It's you just don't know. But obviously, Fleet Planner offers that type of service. So registering on the Fleet Planner website would be definitely the thing that I would do if I was looking to be to get more clients as a transport manager.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as well, for my job, that I do lots of license applications. And the thing that I wanted to mention as well, which a lot of people or external transport managers out there may not know or may not see as much, is that mainly, and what it is mandatory to have, is an external transport manager or a transport manager that you are yourself listed on a standard license, operator's license. But you can also, and sometimes it's highly recommended through companies like us, that you get an external transport manager to be listed on a restricted license. You might find that if you're looking to manage a large fleet on a restricted license, that having an external transport manager is something that not only will help the running of your business, but also really help to just keep you compliant, keep your OCRS score low, and really kind of stop things like public inquiries and questioning from the traffic commissioner ever occurring. But based on that, what kind of difficulties then, I've mentioned now that they help with compliance, but what kind of difficulties have you encountered with being an external transport manager for companies? For example, if a driver did something wrong and you were the transport manager for that company, what would the onus be on you? What kind of things are important for a transport manager to do in a situation like that?
Okay, so I think it's important to have some managerial experience or training when being an external transport manager, because although you are external, you are still responsible to make sure that the compliance is met. And to do that, sometimes you need to educate the directors, the management, but also you need to be able to discipline. Okay, and although I don't believe that discipline is the first thing we should think of in terms of changing the behaviors, because obviously training comes first. However, the disciplinary procedure needs to be in place. Okay, and if that comes with management responsibility. There needs to be the company needs to work there needs to be procedures, policies that company is applying. Okay, and everyone needs to be aware of them, and everyone needs to be treated equally. Okay, so if the driver is found to do something wrong, then obviously when it's highlighted, first of all, there needs to be a procedure that is able to highlight that problem. Okay, and if that procedure is failing, then it's transport manager's responsibility to make sure it's addressed. So that's kind of the first basic level. Then once the shortcomings are highlighted through various reports or checks that the company does, then we need to be able to address that issue. If the issue is obviously that the driver has done something illegal, examples would be driving under influence of illegal substance or alcohol, then that's something the company needs to address sharply, and then the really kind of dismissal comes to mind, obviously following full investigation. Prior to full subject to full investigation and things like that. However, if there is something like less drastic, someone made a mistake on driver's hours regulations, things like that, then we obviously offer training. We find out what the issue is. Okay, and then again, that's where the ability to communicate comes, because sometimes people may be scared, especially in working for smaller organizations. People may be scared to lose their job, so they will say yes to everything what you say. Yeah, I know that. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you run another report, or you do another check, and then you find the issue still persists. So being able to get through to that person, then they may be having some learning difficulties. Address kind of how they want the information to be presented to them, so they understand, is a key. Okay, so running when doing some training, it's important to get some feedback as well, and then do some check if the driver actually understood what you mean.
So maybe the key then saying, sorry, is the route, treating kind of when you get issues where, for example, a driver fraudulently used someone else's driver's card, or for example, a driver hit something when they were reversing somewhere, something like that. You're kind of suggesting that it's the policies, the training, things like that are the things that you need to focus on as an external transport manager, as it kind of works as more of a preventative thing, stopping those things from happening in the first place, making people or transport managers, drivers, to force them to become aware of the things that they are responsible for and they need to do safely, to prevent issues like that kind of coming into the hands of you and you having to manage that as a transport manager yourself.
Yes, I mean exactly. So obviously we need to keep separate things. Like if someone is some fraudulent activity, there needs to be very strict approach to that. That needs to be dealt with. There's no training there. If someone is committing fraud, then you can't really. It's not your responsibility, or you shouldn't, as a company, kind of retrain. Really, that's my opinion. There is authorities that deal with that. Fraud is something that needs to. So using someone else's card is something that you can't just train, because that's obvious that someone is breaking the law. We're talking like, what I mean is, if someone kind of extended driver's hours or working hours regulations, maybe, and they, because they didn't understood fully the regulations, then that's where the place for training is, or maybe some more practical training on how to plan the route and then things like that. So that's kind of, there needs to be processes and procedures in place for everything, and then the bigger company, obviously the more complex the procedures are. However, the basics need to be always there, which is the training kind of, and checking if this is applied properly.
So that's a good point. So we've spoken about what happens with transport managers when drivers or employees of a company that they are the transport manager for, do something wrong. But what kind of outcome or consequence will happen if a transport manager is not taking their responsibilities for the compliance of transport operations seriously? What can that lead to for businesses or sole traders, anyone like that, in a situation like that?
Yeah, so obviously if something like some non-compliance happens, then the systems that company is using are brought to question. So obviously if you've got DVSA stop, or police found out something, like some driver's hours problems or something wrong with the vehicle, then obviously the compliance system is brought into question. Okay, and then if the compliance system failed, then obviously it wasn't implemented or wasn't carried out properly, then that falls onto the management, which includes obviously transport manager, if there is one on a standard license. On the restricted licenses, there is obviously owners or the director of the company. So depending on the type of license, if it's a sole trader or the limited company, then the responsibility is with the people who are responsible for the company. So obviously the owners or the directors. But in the same principle really applies to hold the operator license. You need to have good repute. If you are found to notoriously break the regulations, and you find that you are not applying enough resource to actually be compliant, then the traffic commissioner can make a decision that's to remove good repute. So obviously that will apply to transport managers and the directors. Therefore, the message is basically that you're not welcome in the transport industry. You shouldn't really take that responsibility on, because basically you've not fulfilled what you promised.
So it can actually be quite damaging to the transport manager if they are failing to do something like that. They could go from making X amount of money on 3 different licenses per month to then having a public inquiry and being told that they are not of good repute and they should not be, or are not allowed to be, a transport manager on operator licenses anymore. So
yes,
that's quite interesting. I mean,
yes,
it's quite a responsibility, and it can go either way very easily. And I think that's an important point to highlight to people watching as well. If you're looking to become an external transport manager, for example.
Yes, I mean obviously the good repute, losing good repute is one thing, but obviously the main objective why we do all this is to keep safe vehicles on the road. And there is always a risk of accident and things go wrong, on the roads, which also I think that's kind of the biggest fear or transport manager may have, is that something is not been, the vehicle was not in good condition, the driver was not fit to drive and then drove, and then something happens. So obviously that responsibility is quite big. Making sure that your vehicles are safe on the road is a key really in here.
Definitely. So then what kind of help is available to external transport managers who is there more training they can do to make sure that they are doing everything that they can to keep transport operations safe, things like that?
Yes, obviously. I mean, so now really traffic commissioners want every transport manager to complete the regular refresher trainings at least every 5 years, which is a good thing, obviously, to keep up to date with all the changes in the requirements, and if there is any updates, or even simply just refreshing the knowledge that they already have. So that's something definitely there. You can attend seminars, being involved in the industry, having that exposure to problems. So again, kind of having multiple operators is a good thing for that, because you see, right, you may be helping one company to get out of trouble, and then you see how the DVSA interview looks like, what to prepare, and what the expectations are, and then you can take that knowledge and have a meeting with another company and say, well, actually, what you're saying, what the principles you apply are maybe short of the requirements, and then you are able to give real life examples, obviously without mentioning names and keeping the kind of data protection, because that's one of the responsibilities you take on as well, that you've got to really protect the company that you are working for. However, the knowledge and the exposure, without mentioning names, you can use that absolutely, and kind of, it really works with people. If you kind of say, well, actually, if you do this, you are likely to be exposed to this type of problem, rather than just reading it from the requirements from the government publications. You can tell them some real life examples.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful as well. It means it's more tangible for the person you're talking to them about, in terms of what they can do to keep their transport operations safe, for example. So then, and to kind of wrap up, and one of my questions that I thought I'd ask you at the end is, what if you had to give 3 pieces of advice to someone who is looking to become an external transport manager, 3 points, what would you give them with your experience and, how to get work, things like that? What would be those 3 points that you have for them?
Okay, so first of all, first one will be to build a relationship and check them, to kind of lay out the expectations. Having an honest meeting at the beginning is quite important. What your expectations are. Quite important one, actually, the payment expectations. Okay, because in most cases you will be invoicing for your work, so telling the payment terms and things like that, that's quite often overlooked. And obviously, everyone needs to earn their money. So laying out the expectations up front is important, and it will not ducking away from that issue is important. Laying out the communication expectations, and that will be the first for me. The second is having your procedures ready. Okay, making sure that your documents that you're happy with, because some companies may have something in place already. If you're engaging with the established operator, make sure you're comfortable with that. Okay, and you need to be assertive. Because time and time again, I've seen people saying, "Oh no, we've been doing like that for years." Especially speaking with workshops. Okay, paperwork needs to be up to standard. If it's not, then it's not good, and it needs to be addressed. Okay, so procedures like driver's hours, when and how often the cards will be downloaded, vehicles, what system we're using to run the infringement reports, what system we're using for compliance. I mean, obviously, Fleet Planner has got fleet management software. Okay, now if you're external transport manager and if someone is using paper to check, to do the previous vehicle checks, the difference is huge. Okay, because if you, let's say, if it's a small operator, you will see them once a week. Okay, then the driver may be off, or the defect might have been lost, or something like that. You simply may not get that document. Okay, and the time you will spend chasing this is just waste of your valuable time. If you have fleet management software and then they do the vehicle check on the app, you can log in every morning. Okay, you have a routine in the morning, log in. Okay, right, what have I got in here? Has everyone done my defects? Is there any problems that reported? You are, there's so much more control, so much less stress. It's the money that you invest is really minimal in terms of benefits that you get. Okay, so like I said, second one is having proper systems in place and training. Okay, and the third one is obviously having the review procedures of whether the system is working. Okay, kind of running a regular, and then being able to kind of take a step back and saying, right, if I had a DVSA visit tomorrow, what would I say? Are we able to answer all the questions? Okay, and for people who don't understand this, who've never been through that process, quite often you will see that they will be kind of moving towards, okay, it's money making is more important, because there is a lot of pressure on transport. Let's not forget about that. So people, the owners of who run the transport companies, they are under a lot of pressure. There is money for maintenance. There is money to pay the drivers, obviously fuel, cash flow problems. They need to obviously maintain their financial standing. Okay, so asking question about that, is there's a lot of balls in the air that they need to manage. Okay, so being able to step back and kind of answer, where do we stand on a scale of compliance, non-compliance? What do we need to work on? And then kind of having that review, or maybe even external audit is something that's worth having once in a while.
I think you mentioned a good point throughout that as well, in terms of keeping records through things like fleet management software. For example, in my role, if you've got a standard license and you've already got an external transport manager, but you've lost somewhere down the line, failed MOT records, maintenance inspection records, daily walk around check reports, and then you decide that you want to apply for a variation on the license to increase your fleet by double the amount, for example. Things like that will catch you up with the traffic commissioner. You'll be questioned about reports, or your OCRS score, and why that OCRS score is low. It could be to do with those records and things like that. So making sure, as transport operators, if you're an external transport manager, that you have things that lend well to keep you compliant, because if you ever decide, or you want to put yourself in a position to expand, you need to be able to demonstrate that continuous kind of compliance, and that's something that you'll be able to apply when you're looking to expand your fleet, for example. But I noted down the points for you that you've said, which are the 3 pieces of advice. So relationships, build relationships with your operators. This is going to help in terms of communication, in terms of policies, training, and just overall transparency. Correct me if I say any of these wrong, Roman. But I've got procedures, so policies and procedures in place to help with things like driver's hours regulations. And then things like review, so audits, things like that, to just make sure that whenever, maybe every 6 months, you want to have someone to come in, like we can, review your kind of compliance, make sure that all of the things that you've got in place are working, and to make suggestions for things that will help to streamline things better, or just to keep you really quite you know, following the regulations really well. If you're watching and you do have some more questions for us, please drop them in now or just comment on the post, that's fine. Thank you for watching. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing another video on how to grow your business in the transport industry. So if you've enjoyed this and you want to kind of see something different, then please feel free to join, like the Fleet Planner page or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. I don't know if you've got anything to say, Roman, before we finish up, but that's all from me.
Obviously, thank you very much. And you know, obviously, we try to give as much knowledge as possible. And you know, anything that you would like to add, absolutely, drop a comment, and then we will pick that up in the next videos. Because obviously, I don't think you can fully exhaust the subject in one video. So
Definitely.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everyone.